The following video might be difficult for some viewers. If you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, please reach out. People care about you. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-8255. Hello, welcome to Procrastination Points. If you're new here, I read bad books so that you don't have to. Today, we're finally taking a breather from a seemingly endless array of pulled-to-publish Twilight romances, and I'm starting something that promises to be a young adult thing. I say promises because a lot of the reviews are warning that this book is a little on the, how should I put this, spicy side. I get the feeling that this entire series is nothing but the author writing out her revenge on girls who were mean to me in high school. And I get that it can be rather cathartic to write stuff like that, but you're not really, supposed to publish it. Anyway, let's get started. Prologue. I don't even know how to properly process the tiny snippet of words that I'm seeing. I might as well quote the entire thing because of how little that it is. Okay, so it's a bit longer than, say, Twilight's useless prologues, but it's kind of wordless and makes me wonder why the author even bothered. In it, a girl stands on a freeway overpass, contemplates jumping, and then she does. A couple of things stand out that are probably foreshadowing. But again, I don't know why the author bothered with this little teaser of things to come. The book hasn't even started, so I literally don't even care. Let's move on, shall we? Part 1, because we're apparently doing this, Chapter 1, and apparently this is going to be one of those books. I'm going to have to quote the first line to you because it must be read in order to be believed. Emily Winter stood in front of her bedroom mirror, a fluffy white towel wrapped around her torso as she tried to work a tangle from her dark, dripping hair. This is literally the opening line of this book. No wonder that the author felt the need to put in that dumb prologue. With an opening like that, most people would have immediately dropped this book. If you think that it gets better beyond that, I'll keep reading. The room was quiet except for the radiator next to her closet. It made its trademark ticking sound, one that had kept her awake as a child. She always imagined an old witch trying to claw her way out of the wall, but she was used to it by now. Just like the tiny mole above her right eyebrow, she'd had it since birth, and the only time she'd ever noticed it was when someone else commented on it. I've got the hunch that the rest of the book is going to be a complete and utter disaster if this is the opening that we're going to get. Emily hears a noise, and in a typical fashion of a woman raised on a healthy diet of law and order, she thinks about murderers and thieves breaking into her house. Only as she looks at the window, she's like, nothing ever happens in her little town. Don't be silly. Her friend starts to message her, and, what year is this published? Are they seriously using some kind of AOL or something? What? Unless this was published in, 2003, there's no excuse for any of this. I know that we grew up in the era of AOL, but for a book published in 2011, the idea of a computer-based online messenger where you have usernames with numbers is really cringe-inducingly outdated. Also, I might have been willing to overlook the AOL, but not using text talk, using the letter U instead of YOU. This is not helping with my initial assessment that this is just revenge against girls who were mean to me in high school that somehow got published. Anyway, so Emily's friend Gabby is frantic over some kind of upcoming party, and she's flooding the messenger with questions about if she should wear her hair up and down, or if she should wear this dress or that. Again, this book is drowning us in these petty people and making no effort to get us to care about them. This is 100% a girls who were mean to me in high school publication. The narration randomly talks about how Gabby's boyfriend once won a plush zebra at a claw game and gave it to Emily. Gabby got a bear, if anybody really gives a hoot. After Emily talks some with Gabby about what she's to wear, the narration tells us a little bit more about Gabby. As you probably could have guessed, she's blonde, spends too much time obsessing over her hair, and apparently rules the school. And last year, Em had managed to put the yearbook committee back on the map of acceptable, cool after-school activities by collecting artifacts, notes, ticket stubs, receipts, candid photos, snippets of class essays, and turning the yearbook into an Ascension scrapbook. Gabby did the layout, and Em wrote all the witty captions and pasted in quotes. Maybe I'm just missing something here, but the reason why we like scrapbooking so much is because the things that go into it are personal to the people who make them. Although the idea of a scrapbook-themed yearbook does sound pretty cute, it almost seems to defeat the point of the actual scrapbook. I also fail to see how that would make being on yearbook cool. The thing that made it cool was the queen bee and her second-in-command being on the committee, not the theme for that year. Random aside, but one year my school did a train theme for the yearbook. I still don't know what that was about. Now, they were floating through their junior year as they'd always planned to, and going to parties without feeling like they needed personal invitations, studying for the SATs, working hard, and playing hard. Ah, yes, the idea of what school should be versus how I'm pretty sure that no high school student ever actually had a party that involves red Solo cups. Also, I'm surprised that they're actually taking the time to study. It seems as though they're too busy socializing to care, especially because this book is determined to paint them as the bad guys here. These two girls are as thick as thieves and have been since, like, forever. But lately, Emily has felt like there's something off in her relationship. She's finding Gabby's personality to be exceptionally shallow. She goes on to complain to the reader that Gabby asked Emily to basically pass along her Christmas wish list to her boyfriend. Why Gabby couldn't have told Zach this herself, I don't know. What's even more baffling is that the narration then goes out of its way to explain to the reader what Gabby wants for Christmas. And boy, let me tell you something. If Emily is annoyed to have been told all of this information, I'm personally 10 times more annoyed that it was regurgitated to us, especially in this really painful, awkward telling way rather than showing Gabby talking about it and showing how much Emily suddenly loathes her friend's vapidness. Also, Gabby asked for an iPod Nano, so yeah, this is painfully set in 2005, which was probably when the author was in high school. Anyway, the narration then pauses whatever is going on to tell us about Emily's parents. And normally, I don't think that I would mind, especially not in the first chapter, but that's with good books. This book starts off by telling us that they'd been together since they were 16, which is fine, and that Emily couldn't imagine being with somebody for such a long amount of time, which is building up who she is as a character, and that's also fine. But then it decides to tell us the exact where and when and how and why the two of them hooked up. And it's like so much else in this story, it's an endless parade of why is this relevant and why is the author so incapable of showing us a single thing? We are literally still in chapter 1. But of course, Em didn't. She had never felt electric passion or the sense of fate unfolding for her. All she had experienced was awkward kissing with boys who didn't know what to do with their hands. She certainly never looked into a boy's eyes and just known. She is 16. It's perfectly normal not to have had a lot of romantic experience. Let's start a movement to stop books from telling young girls that if they haven't found the love of their life by the second that they turn 12, they're going to die alone and unkissed. This is seriously not a healthy mindset for a young girl to have. Emily is broken from her musings about true love by somebody throwing a snowball at her window. She looks out and sees a male friend, JD, and signals to him to wait. And then the narration pauses in the middle of this to describe what JD looks like before it gives us JD's reaction to Emily. Because this is what we're doing, I guess. Just an endless stream of whatever garbage fell out of the author's head with literally nobody there to help whip this story into anything remotely readable. Before Emily finishes getting ready, she has to explain to the reader what her neighborhood looks like in the snow, because this was relevant, I guess. As she's leaving the house, she tells her parents that she's going to so-and-so's for a party and JD is driving. And in a typical young adult parenting fashion, her parents are more consumed with an unknown something rather than their actual child. And right as the chapter ends, Emily feels invisible and overlooked even to her own parents. Because what would a young adult novel be if the main character couldn't angst about being overlooked? Chapter 2. The second chapter doesn't pick up from where we left off with chapter 1. Nope. Instead of continuing along with Emily, we're now being introduced to Chase. Really can't wait to see what kind of unrelated garbage that we're going to learn about him. How about the time that he broke his arm in the 3rd grade? Or what about how he walked in on his sister in the shower? Every night, right before winter break, an Ascension High School senior stepped up to host the party to end all parties. Part holiday gala, part celebration of being halfway done with the school year, the party was the stuff that legends were made of. Legends that often took another 6 months to live down. This year, with Ian Minister's parents away on their second honeymoon, whose house was ground zero for reputations to be ruined and reinforced. You know, if I had actual money, I might conduct a survey into why people seem to be of the opinion that high school is a revolving door of wild parties, binge drinking, and hookups, when it's literally none of that. Like, yes, we know that media keeps showing it, but like, why? Is there legit anybody who 100% unironically thinks that this happens in high school and they were just not invited or something? Anyway, since this story is apparently going to be a revolving door of terrible characters doing terrible things, Chase is that horn dog who uses women and then drops them in the trash as soon as he's bored with them. You all know the type. He was on his schedule. By the time he arrived at Minister's house, the sophomore and junior girls would have drunk just enough to lower their inhibitions, but not so much that they were too wasted to flirt. Underage drinking, implications of rape, holy. The narration goes on and says a lot of words to explain one simple concept. Chase is the holier-than-thou football star who is hoping to get into college on a football scholarship because his family is poor and he wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise. Except that Chase sounds like a giant jerkwad about the entire thing and almost acts like he's too good to even think about applying for any other kind of scholarship, despite him whining about how poor his family is. So any sort of sympathy his poverty might drum up in the reader is almost instantly dashed by his sour attitude about it. I know that Chase isn't supposed to be the hero here, but I feel like the author couldn't begin to define subtle even if I handed her a dictionary. Although I should pause in my commentary for a second to say, at least if you're going to wear a high school letter jacket to a party, the character is at least in high school. The bar is set at the ground at this point, but good job. Another facet of Chase's personality is that he feels like the proverbial big fish in a tiny pond in the little town where they live. He was going to choose his date for the Ascension football feast tonight. He was going to pick someone quality too, someone who would make up for last year, a girl who wasn't too loud and smiled in the right times and looked good in a dress, maybe even someone he could talk to for more than 15 minutes. Maybe it's just me, but if you want to have a date who you can talk to for more than 15 minutes, maybe stop trolling for drunk girls. I would also like to remind everybody that these are high school students and them drinking is illegal. Tonight, Chase planned on finding the perfect girl. He needed it. He deserved it. I'm sorry, I surely must have suddenly lost my ability to read and comprehend English. Did this seriously just say that he deserved to have a date? He goes to the party and I don't know what to tell you about it. It could be replaced with any other high school party scene from any other series. The narration also takes another moment to hammer in how poor that he is. And we get it. He's poor and he's also bitter and angry about it. Is he doing anything to, not be poor? No, his entire future revolves around a hypothetical football scholarship. He doesn't have a job, he just plays football. And apparently goes to parties where he flirts with underage drunk girls. He goes over to his friend Zach, who is dating Gabby. They talk briefly about Emily and that she should be there soon. Somebody brings up a random girl named Sasha, and then something really weird happens. It's like all these lights are turned on, and for a second, Chase feels like time stopped. And then the others around Chase continue their conversation like nothing happened. And Chase feels like somebody turned off all the lights despite things being back to normal now. I am here for this creepy foreshadowing. Anyway, so they talk about this girl who threw herself off from the freeway overpass, which I'm guessing is the girl from the prologue. Chase tells the reader that Sasha was a social pariah and goes on to explain about his own relationship with her. Sasha lived for a while in the same trailer park as Chase, and he would play with her when they were younger. His mother often sent Chase to Sasha's trailer whenever Chase's dad got angry drunk. He once thought that he might rather like Sasha, but then Sasha's mom married somebody rich, and it was a literal rags to riches story for Sasha. She was suddenly wearing all the right clothes and everything. It was the first lesson in Chase's life that money mattered, especially because Sasha suddenly found Chase beneath her. However, the opinions of your peers are often a tricky thing, and she was accepted one week and out the next. Chase is just shocked at the news about Sasha's suicide. Zach asks Gabby if this is a joke, but Gabby says no, that Sasha isn't actually dead right now, but in a coma and likely paralyzed. This entire thing only happened about 2 hours ago, and Gabby only found out because her mom is a reporter and asked her daughter if she knew Sasha. However, Chase is beyond shocked by the news regardless of Sasha's current condition. He excuses himself from the conversation and kinda mindlessly wanders around the house. He starts drinking some alcohol and thinks about Sasha. He continues to wander absently until Zach finds him again. What do you want to do over the next couple of weeks? You're a free agent. Free agent? Yeah, right. I wouldn't be surprised if Gabs planted a video camera in my alarm clock. In the grand scheme of things that had been introduced in this chapter alone, the idea of the obsessive girlfriend installing literal spyware onto her boyfriend's alarm clock barely even registers. But then they quickly talk about playing video games during the vacation instead of Zach cheating on his girlfriend. They mention studying, and Zach makes a terrible joke about his stepfather killing himself if Zach doesn't get a perfect SAT score. However, at least these characters do have enough self-awareness to realize that it's a poor joke with bad timing in light of Sasha's recent suicide attempt. The boys then turn their attention to a couple of girls who are talking about starting up a grief support group. Chase points out that it's not like anybody really cared that much about Sasha, and although Gabby is quick to chide him for it, it's not like he's wrong. Why do they give a hoot about Sasha now that she's made a suicide attempt? I hate to be the one to say it, but it's behavior like this that is the exact reason why Sasha tried to kill herself. They can't have hated her and then suddenly love her the second she tries to kill herself. He then goes into the bathroom where he tells himself to get it together. Which, it's okay to be upset after hearing that somebody you know died. Even if you had drifted apart the past couple of years, it's still okay to be upset. Even if you didn't know them all that well, it's still okay to be upset. Chase notices a stain on his shirt and gets upset over that. He somehow thinks that his entire life is going to fall to pieces simply because he got a stain on his shirt at a high school party. And, yeah, that was intense. Guess I'm going to be putting up a warning at the front of all the videos and probably flash the suicide hotline number up again at the end. The contents of this book can be quite intense, I know. If you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. People care about you. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-8255. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all of my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, then you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, you can either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and now 2 full-length novels. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys! His mother often sent Chase to Sasha's trailer whenever Chase's dad... His mother often sent Chase's...